The winter wind cut through the little town of Red Hollow like a knife, rattling shutters and biting through coats. Most folks kept indoors, safe behind warm stoves. But on that morning, a solitary figure rode in from the horizon, a cowboy, weathered by silence, his horse breathing clouds of white into the frozen air. He wasn't searching for company, only supplies, flour, beans, coffee. Yet fate doesn't care about lists. Because just outside the bakery, he saw her, a young bride, her dress torn, veil stiff with frost, kneeling in the snow. In her trembling hands, not a bouquet, not a ring, just a scrap of stale bread pulled from the trash. Her lips were pale, her dignity fragile, and her hunger unmistakable. That was the moment two strangers collided, not by chance but by the cruel hand of winter, and perhaps something greater. What happens when a lonely cowboy meets a starving bride in the snow? If stories of fate, grit, and unexpected kindness move you, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who could use a little warmth today. It helps more than you know. The wind howled across the plains, carrying with it the sting of snow and the faint smoke of distant chimneys. Winter had been brutal that year. So brutal the old men in Red Hollow said they hadn't seen its like since their fathers were boys. Out of that pale horizon came a single rider, shoulders broad beneath a worn brown coat, hat pulled low to block the glare of ice. His name was Luke Mercer. Luke wasn't a man of many words. He carried silence the way others carried weapons, close, heavy, and sharp. Since his father's death, life on the ranch had been nothing but long stretches of labor, broken only by evenings beside a lonely fire. He didn't come to town for talk. He came for supplies, flour, beans, coffee, the sort of list that kept a man alive through winter. But here's the thing about lists. They don't leave room for fate. As Luke guided his horse down the quiet main street of Red Hollow, past shuttered saloons and the faint clang of a blacksmith's hammer, he thought only of his errands. What he didn't know was that just ahead, kneeling in the snow, was a figure who would rewrite his story forever. Luke was halfway to the general store when he saw her. At first he thought the snow was playing tricks. A figure hunched beside the bakery, dress torn at the hem, hair tangled beneath a thin veil stiffened with frost. Not a shopper, not a townsfolk. A bride, on her knees in the cold. In her trembling hands she held a scrap of stale bread, pulled from a trash barrel. She broke it into small pieces, eating slowly, as though every crumb was sacred. Her lips were pale, her eyes hollow with hunger, yet her dignity clung to her like a second skin. She didn't beg. She didn't cry out. She simply survived, one mouthful at a time. Luke froze, his boots crunched the snow, and her head snapped up, eyes wide, like a deer caught cornered, unsure if mercy or cruelty was about to strike. For a moment neither moved. The cowboy should have kept walking, it wasn't his business, townsfolk would talk. But something stronger than reason tugged at him. This wasn't just hunger. This was someone's life unraveling in front of him. And Luke Mercer, a man who had lived years untouched by company, suddenly couldn't turn away. Luke stepped past her, into the bakery. The bell above the door jingled, the warmth of the oven hitting his face. He didn't waste words, just ordered 2 loaves of bread and a tin of hot stew. The baker's eyes flicked toward the window where the girl still knelt in the snow. Luke's voice cut short any questions. Don't ask. When he returned outside, she flinched at the creak of the door. Luke crouched, holding out the bundle. Here, eat. For a heartbeat, she didn't move, as though kindness was harder to believe than cruelty. Then with shaking hands, she accepted it. Steam curled from the stew, fogging the frozen air. She sipped once and a sound escaped her, a soft, broken mix of relief and disbelief. Tears glistened in her eyes, though she blinked them away quickly, too proud to show weakness. Luke said nothing. He just stayed there, steady, patient, the way he'd calm a wild horse. Finally, her lips parted. Why? She whispered. Luke shrugged. You looked hungry. Silence stretched, until at last she spoke again, her voice fragile but firm. My name's Clara. Luke tipped his hat, the corners of his mouth tightening. Luke. A gust of wind swept down the street, rattling signs and biting through cloth. Clara shivered, clutching the blanket Luke had just draped around her shoulders. Her gown had once been white, no doubt meant for vows and celebration. Now it was a thin shield against a winter that showed no mercy. Luke's jaw tightened. He'd seen hardship before, but something about this sight, this young woman kneeling in the cold while laughter drifted faintly from the saloon, hit him deeper than he expected. "Where's your husband?" The words slipped out sharper than he intended. Clara's eyes darted away, lips trembling, but she gave no answer. Whatever story lay behind that ring on her finger, it wasn't one she was ready to tell. Luke didn't press. Instead, he straightened and offered a hand. "You'll freeze out here, come on." She blinked at him, torn between mistrust and desperation. "Where would I go?" Luke hesitated. He hadn't planned on letting anyone into his quiet world, but leaving her in the snow wasn't an option. "My ranch is a few miles out. It ain't much, but it's warm. You can stay until you figure things out." Hope flickered in her eyes, fragile as a candle. The townsfolk peered through frosted windows as Luke helped Clara onto his horse. Whispers would spread by nightfall. The silent cowboy, always keeping to himself, now leaving town with a ragged bride wrapped in his blanket. Questions would come, but Luke didn't care. The chestnut horse snorted, hooves crunching over the snow as they rode past the last storefronts. Red Hollow shrank behind them, swallowed by white horizon. Ahead lay only open plains, silent woods, and the small ranch Luke called home. Clara clung to his coat, cheek pressed against his back. She was exhausted, but for the first time in days, maybe weeks, her heart carried a fragile hope. She whispered a prayer, not for riches or escape, but simply for a chance to belong. Luke rode steady, unaware that the list of supplies in his pocket had already lost its meaning. He had come for flour, beans, and coffee. But fate had given him something else. Something heavier, yes, but far more precious. The road ahead was uncertain. But for the first time in years, it didn't feel lonely. And so, the cowboy who rode into town for supplies left with more than he ever expected. A companion, a story, maybe even the start of a new life. If you believe in second chances and in kindness showing up when it's least expected, then let this tale stay with you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this story touched your heart. And remember, sometimes the smallest act of compassion can change the course of two lives forever.